Osho, Osho.
So shall we start?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So, how did Osho come into your life? And what happened next?
And also, one part, did Viraj plays a role on that?
Well, it's quite a story. The first time I heard about Osho was when I was 8 years old. My parents were divorced already since several years. And I remember I lived with my mom and I met my father and he took me to the side and he said, "Look, I want to tell you something. I met a master. Um, he's called Bhagwan, and I'm going to follow him. And what that means is I will have to wear a wooden chain and I'm going to wear red all the time. And I'm doing some meditations, which are really beautiful and so forth." So my first impression was that I was shocked. I thought I had lost my father now completely. He's become a Hare Krishna or something like that. And I put it off like, okay, he was always a little bit doing unusual things. So I thought, okay, another one of his unusual things. So then a few months later, my mom and my stepfather that I was living with, they came to me and they said, "Oh, we are going to become sannyasins. We're going to follow Osho, Bhagwan at the time." And I was starting to get really concerned and upset. I thought, like, oh my God, he's Osho is going to take my family away, and I'm losing my safety. And then a couple of months later, my little sister decided I want to become a sannyasin too, and that was the time for me where I said, "Okay, you can take my whole family." But you're not going to get me. And I became really resentful. I became scared and resentful. And I was worried that my family is going to break apart. And I felt really unsafe. So that was in November. And then in about, I think it was around June or so in the next year, I had turned 10 by then. My mom came to me and she said, "Oh, we want to go to America to see Bhagwan. And do you want to come?" And I said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not going there. I'm not crazy. This is not my cup of tea. You can go and I do something else. I go to my grandmother or so." And then she said something really beautiful. She said, "Look, you don't have to do anything there. You can just come and look. You don't have to become a sannyasin. You don't have to do meditations or anything like that. You just look." And then she got me with that. And I started to think and I thought to myself, who of my friends being 10 years old can say that they have gone to vacation to America? So then I felt I wanted to show off to my friends later. And I said, okay, I go. And then once we arrived in Rajneeshpuram, I was so impressed by all these people walking around in orange and red and beautiful colors, and everybody had a smile on their face. Everybody was happy. Everybody was working and celebrating and dancing and hugging and close to each other. And I was really impressed. Thought like, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. And they've created this amazing city from a desert and building, and there was huge parks of tents where we were staying at the time, and beautiful lakes that we could go and swim in, and I played and so forth. And then every day there was what was called the drive-by, an opportunity for Osho to see all his sannyasins. So he would be driving in his Rolls Royce all the sannyasins standing on the side of the road in the heat of 40 degrees in America, burning hot. And I remember standing there for 1 hour, nothing happened, and I was bored. And there was another half an hour, nothing happened. And I got really upset, and I thought, "Oh, what am I doing here?" And then finally, after about 2 hours, there was some movement down at the end of the line, and I could see people starting to dance, and the energy started to rise, and it was becoming really intense, and I became nervous. And then it was like, "Oh, Osho is coming, Osho is coming." And then I could see the Rolls Royce coming, and it had all these beautiful roses in the front, and people were dancing and hallelujah and Osho and Bhagwan at the time. So he came closer and closer, and I became so nervous. I was so excited with this energy. And then finally he passed, and I looked at him and I was amazed, and he passed just by me. Then the car stopped, and I thought, "Oh my God." And then he came back, and just in front of me, the car stopped, and his window went down very slowly, and he handed out a Buddha to a person who was physically handicapped, and he was in a wheelchair next to me. And I looked at Osho, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And then I saw this man in the wheelchair receiving this Buddha, and he was jumping up and down in his wheelchair. He was laughing and crying at the same time. And I felt this amazing loving energy. I thought, like, wow, how can a person be so touched by this little Buddha gift? And then for a moment I looked at Osho, and he looked me right into my eyes, and I almost fainted. I felt so much love from this man. And he smiled. He had this very gentle smile, and I was gone. I don't remember really much. I almost fainted. And then when I opened my eyes again, the car had moved on. And in this moment, I knew that I had to become a sannyasin. I felt so much love from him that I knew this must be the purpose of life. This must be what life is all about. And despite my resistance and my resentments, I decided to take up the challenge. And with my father, we went together to the office to register. I want to become a sannyasin, okay? And then they said, "Yeah, you have to wear red." And I was like, "Yes, but I'm playing football, and can I not keep my football clothes?" And so they said, "No, no, no, you have to wear red." And
No.
I said, "Okay, okay." And then I had another condition. I said, "Okay, I want to have the same sannyas birthday as my father. He took sannyas just a year before on the festival on the 7th of July. And then again, the answer was, "No, we cannot do that." And then I thought, damn. Okay, anyway, I surrender, and I said yes. And then I got my appointment to receive the mala and my name, and it was on the 8th of July. So I went there, big celebration. I got my name, and then I got my certificate, and on the certificate was written July 7th. And then I knew, this is my man. There was a divine signal.
And what's the meaning of your name?
My name is Swami Geetanand, and it means Song of Bliss.
Song of Bliss.
Song of Bliss, yes.
Wow.
But to be honest, at the time, I thought it was a bit too long, and it sounded a bit serious. It sounded like a name for adults. So I remember on the way back from the celebration, I was walking with my father, and I said, "Oh, I'm not so happy with the name," and so forth. And then we started to think, Geetanand, Geetanand, and then I don't know if he or I came up with, what about Geetee? And I thought, yes, Geetee I can live with. That's kind of short and a bit cool. So since then I call myself Geetee, but my actual sannyas name is Geetanand. And I'm getting more and more acquainted to the meaning. in the beginning it was difficult because I was myself full of noise. I had a lot of noise inside, so it was difficult to identify with a song or beautiful music. But the older I've become, the more I can appreciate it, and I can see now that I can live up to the name, to the meaning of my name in different ways that I do in my work, or also talking to people and just being myself, actually. So yes, at that time I had no idea about Varesh. So Varesh was not involved at all. I met him 10 years later. And that was a very, very similar story, actually. I worked in a club, in a Sanyas disco at that time. I was 20, I think. And Varesh was coming by on one of his tours through Europe, and he was was scheduled to do an event in this disco, and they were looking for a drummer. So they invited me to be part of his band. And I really loved rock and roll music. So I was into heavy music, Metallica and other strong music. So yeah.
Was it in Germany?
Yeah, it was in Hanover. The disco was called Bhagwan, so they call it Buggy. And so then Bresh was announced, and I heard about him that he was a really tough guy, and he did a lot of really intense groups, and his work was people were scared about his work, and he was said to be very confrontational, and he wouldn't buy any bullshit. And some people said to me, "Oh, you will like him a lot." So I got excited about it, and also I was nervous and scared because I thought like he would be a really big guy and rah, 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 and then when the time came that he arrived, he was late. And I thought, oh man, how can how can you be late? So his whole crew was already there, and Varesh was late, and I thought, okay. We set up everything, and then half an hour later, finally, Varesh is coming. And I got really excited, and I looked around and I didn't see anything. And then suddenly there was this really small guy sticking his head around the corner, and he just smiled, and he walked in, and I expected somebody really big, like bigger than me. And there was this relatively small, sensitive man walking around, and he greeted everybody very beautifully. He said, hello, hello, hello. And then he walked into the room that was prepared for him where he could hang out before the event. And I was really impressed. And I was also a little bit disappointed. I thought like, oh my God, he should be this strong confrontational guy. Okay, let's see. So I ended up playing, and the music was very soft. So I became bored, and I had to take my concentration up and be really present. And then at some point he was sitting right in front of me, like where the computer is now, about a meter in front of the drum kit. At some point he turned to me and he said, look, Geetee, I'm going to tell a story, and every time I say the word thunder, you make a sound of thunder on your drums. And I thought, yes, that's me. I can make a noise. And I was psyched, and I pumped myself up, and I really listened closely. And then he told the story, and then he finally said the word thunder, and I took all my courage, and I went, and he jumped up in front of me out of his seat, and he looked at me in shock. And I thought, oh my God, oh gosh, I totally messed up. I expected him to send me out and say, look, you're horrible, you're not good at playing drums, and you're too loud, and you're this. And I expected to be completely ridiculed in front of the whole group there. And then he looked at me and he smiled, and he said, Geetee, next time I say thunder, you play a little bit softer, okay? And I was like, oh my God, yes, of course. And
Oops.
I felt the same amount of love in his eyes than I had experienced with Osho. I was touched in my heart and I immediately fell in love with this man. And I couldn't explain it. I expected the worst, and he was lifting me up, and with such a beautiful, compassionate love that I felt seen, I felt welcome, I felt loved. And yeah, that's when he got me. And I was ever grateful. I never forget this story. So it took another half a year until I was invited by one of his staff members to come to the Human University, and I came here to be a worker. And she invited me just to check out the place. And when I was here, I really loved it. It was the same vibe as I experienced in Rajneeshpuram and in the beginning of the community that I joined with my parents in Berlin. It was the same love energy field, like a really beautiful Buddha field. Everybody was going into the same direction. Everybody was happy. There was intense things going on in the group room, and everybody was working on themselves and being the most beautiful way they could be. And that really touched me. And then there was a teenage group coming up on the program, and you could join this group until you were 20. So I decided that I wanted to join it because it was the last time in my life that I could ever do a teenage group. And this was
Yes.
my second group at
Mhm.
all. I did one No Mind group in India when I was 15. So I went to Premdeep in her office. She was the director, and I said, "Look, I really want to join this teenage group." And she said, "Oh no, you're too old, you're too tall. You should join the grown-up group with Resh." And I said, "No, no, that was really not what I wanted. I wanted to go into this teenage group." And then, okay, I went in, and there was one particular session which I remember, which was actually it started with a confrontation to me because I was complaining that it wasn't enough therapy. Um, I wanted to do stronger things, and we were drawing a lot and doing a lot of creativity and so forth. So Chandrika, the leader of the Tantra
Mhm,
program,
mhm.
she gave me what we call a pull-up. So she confronted me on my behavior, and she said something like, "Come on, man, just stop complaining all the time, get involved." And then we did a release session afterwards, and in this release I had an amazing experience. I could see my whole childhood going up in front of me like a movie, and my whole teenage time. And I realized that becoming a sannyasin and living in communities and communes, I was very quickly treated as an adult and got a lot of responsibility and were taught how to behave and so forth. And I completely neglected playing with like-minded teenagers and just being silly and having fun. And it was like my heart opened, and I started crying and crying and crying. And the other teenagers around, they were just holding me. They were really like a beautiful family. And I've never experienced this. Normally, when I would cry, I would be ridiculed by my friends, or I also often experienced being rejected, humiliated by my peers. So in this situation, I could just let go and be myself, and this experience came up in which I could see myself, and my heart opened, and I felt so much energy and so much love coming through that I decided that I wanted more of this. So about a half a year later, Chandrika invited me to be part of the Tantra program again, and this time I would be a caretaker. So I would have a few more responsibilities and I would help the younger children. And again, it was so amazing that I then decided I wanted to work with people, and I wanted to become a therapist, actually. So from that moment on, it took me another half a year to arrange everything in Hanover. I left the discotheque and I enrolled in the 1 year intensive therapist training here. That's a residential therapist training where you live and work and you do therapy. You do a lot of groups and you're training to become a therapist. So for me, the experience of meeting Varesh was very similar to meeting Osho. And unfortunately, by the time that Osho had passed in 1990, I was just finishing my school, so I didn't have the chance to meet him anymore. I wanted to go to his place and I wanted to experience him a bit more, but I couldn't because I wanted to finish my school first. So by the time then he had passed already, and then it wasn't so attractive for me to go to India anymore. So I came to the Human University with the detour of the Sanyas discotheque in Hanover. And I found Varesh, and I could start using Varesh as my role model. And what I've experienced from Varesh was yeah, like I said, I repeat myself, it was the same as what I've experienced from Osho. But the love that he had for Osho was I've never seen a man loving another man so totally and with so much dedication and with so much heart. And every time he talked about Osho, he was touched to tears, and I could see his whole being transformed, and there was just love glowing out of him. And he was very shy as well. And I just felt how much Osho meant to him. So I was very impressed by that. So I decided to make Viresh my Osho. I decided that if anything, since I had missed being with Osho, I wanted to project all my love onto Viresh and see if what Osho was saying and what Viresh was saying about the experience of love and having a master, an alive master, is true, and if that would be possible for me to experience. So that was one big motivation for me to really work on myself and to train with Rash.
Yeah, Viresh loved and lived Osho in his own way. Yeah, we honor and respect that. How is it for you? How do you see it today?
Yeah, like I said, I've never seen a human being so dedicated to another person on this planet and speaking about another with so much love and gratitude. There was many moments where this love was challenged. I remember one time, this was before my time here at the Human University. Osho said to Varesh, you have to leave my organization, because the way it's going in my organization, it would destroy your creativity and you could not work the way you want to work anymore. And Varesh said, okay, if that's what you want, I'll do it. And then not so long later, I don't know, a year and a half maybe later, when things settled down again, Varesh said to Osho, I want you to rejoin my organization and I want you to use Osho in front of everything that you do. And Varesh said, if that's what you want, of course, I will. And this, this dedication, I really wanted to have that for myself. I wanted to experience that. So in my way, I decided to dedicate my life to promoting that love that I felt from Osho to begin with, and then that I have experienced from Varesh as well. And the beautiful thing with Varesh was that he made what I experienced with Osho and in Osho's communes. He made it applicable into daily life. He created concepts that were meaningful to me, that I could understand, and that I could apply and practice in daily life in living here in this community. And that gave me meaning. Finally, I could grasp Osho. Finally, I could understand his teachings. He wasn't just a person walking around in his dress and his robes and with his hats. It became feasible for me. It became applicable. And Bresh did it in such a simple way. He always said to me, "Look, when you describe things, imagine that you're speaking to a child. Make it simple, make it so that everybody can understand. We're not into big philosophies or great, amazing concept. It has to be understandable to a child." And that was the simplicity of Varesh. There was his innocence, his also his accuracy. He really broke down these amazing lectures that I heard from Osho into daily practices. That was very special for me. And at the same time, he was completely dedicated and would not compromise in translating Osho into his work in the way he understood him. And if he wasn't clear, he would relate straight back to Osho, either by asking him questions or sending him letters or sending him part of his work. He did a newspaper that he sent to Osho, and Osho was always really happy. He always gave his love and his encouragement to Bresh to continue his way of working. So I in my own way, I wanted to be part of it. And at the same time, there was also a period where I started to I had to decide how I wanted to train, if I wanted to become a therapist and if I wanted to live here. Until then, I was a bit scared to work with Rush really close. And at some point, I decided that if I wanted to be the best therapist I could possibly be, I had to learn from the best. So I signed up for all his groups, and I dedicated myself to learn from him, even though it was really scary at the time. And when I started looking at Varesh and I saw how everybody was relating to him, they were always relating to him as an authority. And I experienced him often as a bit lonely and a bit, a little bit sad sometimes. And I put myself in his position and I thought, like, what would I need if I was him? And the answer came to me very clearly. I would need a friend that I could be myself with, who would not relate to me in a way that everybody else relates to me, put me on a pedestal, being the great big therapist, Varesh, and the community leader or whatever. Just someone that would understand him, that would be by his side and love him exactly for who he is, and not necessarily for what he does. I mean, I also love him for what he did and what he does. But I decided to become that person. So I really worked on myself. And every time I was close by him, I was so overwhelmed by his presence that I wasn't even able to say anything. And he would say to me, here, right there, he was sitting in this chair, and I would come into the door, through the door, and say, give him news about how the groups were going. And he would always say, hey, Geetee, come, sit down, relax. And I was like, oh, okay, relax. So I would sit there and I would feel nervous. I would feel really self-conscious, and he wasn't bothered. He would just be there. We would be in silence, and I started to get nervous. And I looked around in the studio here, and I saw some dirt. So I went and cleaned up the dirt, and then things were out of place. And I went and straightened them out. And then I sat down again. And then I gave him a tissue. So I always had to do something. And
Mhm.
all he ever wanted me to do was sit down, Geetee. Come, sit down.
Yes.
Relax. Yes, relax. It was impossible for me. It was impossible. So it took me years of practicing. And I found what it had to do with was that I was I had such a negative self-image about myself that in his presence, all these, I call them mind fucks, or all my trips would come up, and I would become aware of my arrogance, my inadequacy, my shyness, my insecurity, and I would have judgments about all these parts, and he would just say, "Hey, Geetee, I love you just the way you are." But I couldn't accept that at the time, so I was always having to do something. I would always have to prove that I was okay. I had to run sessions. Then I would come after the sessions, and then he would say, "How was it, Geetee?" And I said, "Yes, good, but I did this wrong and I missed that," and so forth. And he would just smile and laugh, and oh man. So I learned to use my trips or whatever came up for me, what I was not happy with myself, to learn and change, and really look at it and find out what it was all about. And in his presence, I learned to accept myself. So over the years, I started to relax a bit more, and basically he was always saying, "Geetee, you're okay," and I would be saying, "Yes, yes, thank you, Varesh, but what about this?
But
What about that problem? What about this mistake? And what about that?" And
Mhm,
he was
mhm,
smiling, and he was really patient,
mhm.
and he would say to me, "Remember, Geetee, when you started, you drove everybody nuts with your with your stress ability." And it was true. I was really controlling a lot. And later on, I started to relax, and I started to give other people more space. And yeah, how do I see it today? I use him to align myself with the love that I experienced from him, and with the love that I experienced from Osho. And I really do my best to live up to that. To I want to give something back. I want to give that to other people as much as I can do in my own personal limited way. And that's what I dedicated my life to. I want to continue his work. I want to make him known to people, and I want to open myself up more and more so that I can let him work through me. That's
Hmm.
my latest challenge. I My efforts are not to be there anymore myself. I just want to
Mhm.
be transcending information that I got from him, and also Osho, because he was totally aligned with Osho. So I feel really fortunate that I met this man in my life, and that I have the chance to contribute something to the work and the mission that Osho set all of us up for carrying out in the world today. And I couldn't think
Yes.
of anything more beautiful to do. It's
And what
really.
about your family? You said that your father and your mother became a sannyasi, and
Mhm,
your sister.
mhm.
And what about it? Continue with Osho
Yeah,
or?
they do their own sannyas life in their own ways. My parents both live in Germany. My sister also. My
Mhm,
father lives close to Munich, and my my mother and my stepfather, they moved back to the Black Forest now, and in their own little community, my father is married, and my mom and my stepfather in their own little community, they're looking at themselves, they're processing themselves, and they're applying what they got from Osho in their own little ways. My father was a teacher in school, and my mom was a dentist. Now they're both retired, and in their own way, through their work with people, they communicated Osho. Many of the pupils of my father became sannyasin through him, because he was talking about Osho. And my mom became a very famous dentist. Many sannyasins traveled from far to be having a session with her. And many non-sannyasin people also came to her, and they were just, I could see people being touched by their way, by their way of loving, by their way of being themselves. That was really special. And that made them unique in their work. That made them really special people.
They didn't went to Human University.
They came here to visit me, yeah. They came, but they didn't spend so much time here. But my father comes every year now, and he loves it. He loves it. He loves to go walk on the beach, and he came sometimes at the end of the WOW group, and he loved to be in the field of groups. He came also into some sessions, and he would just be so happy to connect with everybody and hug everybody. And my mom, she just loves the family. She adopted everybody in our Human University family as her own. She is not able to come so often, but she really cares about everyone here. So I hope that they're both really happy for me. I also think sometimes they're a little bit concerned, maybe because of security reasons or so forth, but I know I have their blessings. And my sister's blessings also. That's really special. My sister came here to do the tourist program, and that changed her life. Since then, she has the job she always wanted to have, and it really worked well. She got a beautiful boyfriend now, so it was really significant. So they all have the Human University in their hearts. It's very, I'm very lucky.
That's great. And also to become university therapy, and university therapy was just a natural process for you, within all this that happened.
Yeah, somehow I could see it later on. Once I started the training, I had a dream as a child already. I wanted to be a cowboy, then I wanted to be a Red Indian, become a Red Indian, then I wanted to become a fireman or a policeman, and later on I wanted to become a rock star or a famous drummer or a famous football player. And if I look back, it was always what was important for me. I wanted to have an impact on the world. I wanted to contribute to the bigger picture. Then when I actually decided to do the 1 year intensive therapist training, and I experienced the work here at the Human University, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this 1 year intensive training. I liked intensity, heavy metal. And I wanted to do it as quick as possible. I didn't want to spend another 4 years. So in my mind, I would do the 1 year intensive therapist training. I would become a therapist afterwards. I would go back to Germany, and somehow I would create a big house, a big place, just like this here, with a big room and a big chair in which I was sitting. And I had this group in front of me. People would be coming in, and they would sit in front of me, and they would say, "Oh, Geetee, I have this problem. Tell me, what is your answer?" And I would say, "Oh, you go and do this. And your answer is that." And I would be somewhat a god kind of person. And everything would just happen by itself. I had no idea how to make this place happen and so forth.
Uh-huh.
So, but for this 1 year intensive, I was really dedicated and worked really hard. And then about 6 months into the program, I was in the student program here and I slept about 4 hours every night. I was working a lot and doing groups, as many as possible. I talked to Chandrika and I shared this with her. I shared this vision. I said to her, look, I'm going to be a therapist in 1 year and then I'm going to go back to Germany. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, okay. Well, let me tell you something. It is very unusual for people to graduate and become a therapist after just 1 year of training. You need to you need to have a lot of experience if you want to be a therapist. So, but if you really, really work hard, maybe you will manage. So then I thought to myself, oh, even harder than what I'm doing already. And in my mind, I would not sleep at all anymore. I had to read books during the night and so forth. And then I started to, first of all, this was the first time in my life where I thought like, maybe this is not quite a reality here. Maybe I'm having some kind of irrealistic vision about myself and so forth. So then I started to relax a little bit and I started to give a chance that I would not be a therapist after a year. And nevertheless, I continued working really hard and I did all the intensive groups. I signed up for all the marathon groups because I wanted to become a marathon therapist. And I heard Varesh always saying that you can only take people as far as you have gone yourself. And you do need a lot of experience as a therapist. So I figured if I wanted to run marathons, I would have to do a lot of marathon groups. A marathon group means that you don't sleep during the night. You keep working in the group process through the night. And because of the sleep deprivation, a lot of your unconscious material is coming very quickly to the surface. So you have much more material to work with in a faster setting than if you would be more comfortable and so forth. So I signed up for all these groups, and I remember every time that a new group would come up, I would be dreading going into the group room. I would sit with my girlfriend on the couch and I would think like, oh, this would be much more nicer to sit here and watch TV, or I'm getting really tired now. And then I knew I had to go into the group room, and I knew that most probably we would not sleep in the first night. And so I dragged myself into the group room. I was very resistant in the beginning, and then we would be dancing and we would do all kinds of stuff, and I would get excited again. And at the end of the marathons, I would be always so blissed out. And I would re-experience myself in this state that I've met Osho and Varesh. There would be so much love available to me that I knew this is the right thing. This is what I wanted. So I kept training and kept going in and out of this resistance, and I started to working with all these parts of myself. And eventually, I just dedicated myself to continue working in this pace. Like I started assisting Varesh in all the groups. So eventually, I became a therapist 4 years later after the training in 1998. As opposed to my expectations of I could sit down and relax and just everything happens by itself, it was more the opposite. I felt like I had no clue about nothing, so I just needed to continue working on myself because I needed answers about who I was and how I function as a human being, and how all the concepts that I learned from Varesh and Osho would apply to myself, or how would they translate in daily life activities, or how I would experience them. So still today, and this is now 25 years later, I have the same drive to exploring myself. And I do this now by giving a lot of groups. I have pretty much the same pace as when I started training. I do a lot of intense groups. And my passion is still the same. My energy is still the same as when I began training. I just want to find out. I want to know myself, and I want to learn from others so that I can again apply those insights back to myself and practice it in daily life. So in one way, being a therapist means nothing to me anymore, because in the end it all comes down to who am I as a human being, or as a person, as a man. Yeah, sometimes when I walk into groups, I feel like I have no clue what what am I supposed to say to these people. And then I just trust, and I know I have so much experience today. I can walk into a group and I can just feel the energy and come up with something that everybody, me included, is benefiting from. And I love it. I mean, for me, that's the most beautiful job, the most beautiful way of being. Because every time I am in groups, Osho and Varesh are there. I can feel them. I can tap into their field, and everything makes sense to me. Everything falls into place. It's absolutely magic. It's really amazing. And if I can transmit a tiny little something of that to others, which I know they experience in my groups, for me, that's what my life is about. That fulfills me more than anything else. That's really wonderful.
Wow, it's beautiful. Geetee,
Yes.
how our viewers can be in touch with Human University, how they can find out about it?
Okay. That's a difficult question. The best way, I figured, is if you want to find out about the Human University, look up a small fisher village in the Netherlands called Egmond aan Zee. Egmond aan Zee. That's where the Human University is situated, and you will see our building, because we have now made a beautiful, huge new entrance gate. The gate is
Wow.
yellow and it has red big pillars, so you cannot miss it.
Okay, but I mean, to book for groups, to plan the trip, you have a website, yeah?
Yes, we have a website, but
Okay.
why I'm saying this is that actually the best way to find out what is happening here is to come and experience it. And I'm
Wow.
not saying this for no reason, but only because it is really, really difficult to give back in words what is actually happening here. The
Okay.
transformation I see with people and the way they are able to experience themselves in our communal Buddha field is cannot be explained with words, and it cannot be passed on from one person to the other.
Mhm.
It has to be experienced. So of course there are all the social media channels. We are on Facebook, we have an Instagram account, and we have a beautiful new website where all the practical steps are listed. But really the best way is to take all your courage, and despite whatever you've heard from others or whatever you think, just come and check it out. For me, we are living Osho's dream in this community, and yeah, the easiest way is to experience it. It is helpful if you know somebody who has been here. That also seems to work by word of mouth. There's a lot of stories that are traveling around. Some of them are not true. A lot of them are true, but again, it's best to be experienced by yourself. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. How about the music and the studio? Are you
Yeah.
working with that?
I am working with that. I have to say it's a little bit on hold right now. I mean, since Varesh is not in his body here anymore, it's been a bit more difficult because honestly, he was the driving force in the music. Um, I'm trying to put music together for the latest meditation that he did. It's a meditation on gratitude. So I have been working with a beautiful friend of mine called Amano and other friends, and we've laid down a few basic tracks. But during the COVID time, the music project got put on hold, and at the moment it's a bit difficult because I'm also engaged in many other projects here in the house, and I actually personally don't know how to operate the studio, the computer, and I'm a drummer, so I'm not so good with keyboards or other instruments. So I would actually need a producer or somebody who can play music and who has a feeling for who is ready to experiment and explore Varesh and the Human University sound, because it's a very, very special way of doing or creating music. And that I'm really good at. I know exactly how it needs to sound, as I've been so many years with Varesh, and I love our music. So it is very difficult to find someone to continue that part of the
Yes.
legacy.
I think soon somebody will apply that.
Okay,
And
that's great.
okay, I think so. We just opened something up.
Yep,
Okay.
we're opening up.
Yes, yes. I was caught by Viresh through music,
Mm,
Human University music.
yeah. Mm,
Beautiful.
yeah,
I
thank you.
think we are coming to the end.
Mhm.
We want to ask you two little questions more. Maybe the last one is little, the first one not. But after all these years of Osho, Viresh, and Human University, what has changed on the way you look at the world?
What comes to me is I hear Osho's psychology of the Buddhas, and this psychology states that every human being is divine and can come to total self-realization through applying the principles of love, awareness, and responsibility. So for me, that's another way of saying that every human being is a Buddha. And Osho was great about promoting that. He said, "You are a Buddha, you just have forgotten about it, and it's time, hurry up, become that Buddha again." And the other thing from Varesh, what I hear is that he considers every human being as a gift, as a beautiful, unique gift. And I am practicing applying those principles, and I'm practicing seeing the world in this way with all the madness that is going on. And I try not to identify with the negativity too much without ignoring it. But my search is to look at the root of what that negativity or all these weird behaviors, politicians or people that are striving for power or money or wanting to become really rich and all these kind of things. I look at, okay, what is the root here? What went off, and how, again, how does it apply to me? How can I use the information that I see today in the world to become a better person, to influence the field that I have around me, the people that I have around me that I can influence, everyone I meet, and how can I create the greatest amount of change that is possible. So one of our mission statements at the Human University, or the mission statement that we have, is working with people for a better world. And I love that. That sums it up for me. So giving this interview is one of the little ways that we can influence and hopefully inspire others to take on the responsibility to create more change in themselves. I like to look at everybody as a beautiful person, and at the same time, every now and then it becomes really challenging when I'm getting upset or when I'm being triggered by behaviors that I'm not so comfortable with, let's say, or that I feel challenged by. And then I see myself acting in a way that I'm not so happy with. And again, I use that information to bring it back to me and fix it, retake it, apologize, create a bridge to another person so that more love and more friendship can be created. And yeah, that's my way of dealing with the world, or that's my wish for everyone, that we use ourselves. And there is an urgency here. We need to create more love and friendship. We need to create more goodness, more positivity in the world. We need to awaken from the survival routine that we have all been brought up in. That is, okay, this is what the society expects of us to be. This is what my parents expect me to become. This is what my family wants. This is what my friends think. And to step out of this comfort zone and to look inside and say, okay, what is really important to me? What makes me happy? What gives me a drive to get up in the morning and to become creative and to fulfill myself? Because that's our responsibility. We need to fulfill ourselves. We cannot expect anybody else to do that for us. So we need to wake up to that kind of responsibility and create a new awareness about ourselves and align that awareness with fulfilling our purpose in life, to feel good about ourselves and everyone else, even though it's really challenging. I mean, it seems like it becomes more and more challenging the further we go. It can't change. I cannot change politics or something. I can only change what I have around me, that I have an influence on.
Yes.
So Osho and Varesh were really, really great role models. I mean, Osho even more so. He was going out there and talking, and he would shake up the whole world. I mean, he made such a beautiful impact. I remember when I grew up, you talked about meditation, and people would go like, "What? Are you crazy?" And today, meditation is almost standard. Everybody knows meditation. Everybody talks about yoga and so forth. So we have to continue that.
Of course. The last question
Okay.
I want to ask you is, can you say one word for Osho?
Divine love. That comes to me. Mwah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm so touched by your story.
Likewise, we got shower of love from both of you too. Thank you so much. Really, really thank you for your patience that you bared with me and my, my strange way of communicating.
No, there is no but in our talks, you know? Okay.
Thank you so
Love
much.
you. Love
I
you.
look forward to hear from you again. Love you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Geetee.